What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. If you guys are new, if you're returning, then thank you for your continued support. And if you don't already know, we're going to do what we always do, which is get right into it. So if you didn't already figure it out from the thumbnail or the intro, this video is going to be going over the Fusion Firearms XP-Pro Comp yet again, because I promised you guys after the initial video that I would do an update at either 1,000 or 1,500 rounds. Well, my original plan was to do an update at 1,000. That seems to be a pretty good average number for at least people like me. A lot of my buddies like, hey, does it make it 1,000 rounds with no malfunctions? But I hit the 1,000 round mark around the time that I was going to Kalashnikon. So I actually ended up, now this thing is at about 1,500. And I cannot remember the first initial video. I think we went through 300-ish rounds. And since then, I was using this thing to train for Kalashnikon, so I was putting at least 100 to 200 rounds through it per week, just doing kind of some small training days. It's been to 2 USPSA matches now and Kalashnikon. So far, we are sitting at 0 malfunctions. Since the initial video, I've not ran any more steel case through it. It's all been almost exclusively the STV, aka Scorpio brass case, mostly the 124 grain, because that's what shoots the best in this thing, and most of my guns. But I will say, last weekend I did have a USPSA match. I kind of had a malfunction, but I think I overloaded one of my extended mags, and basically it stopped just a little bit out of battery, and I think before I even hit the back of the slide just went ahead and went home. So I'm gonna chalk that up to me cramming way too many rounds in one of these mags. Another big question with these things, and a lot of 2011s, or any gun that requires an optic plate, is it holding 0? So this is my target from the Tela video, and I still had one sticker here left that I hadn't shot, so I just put it up at 10 yards, which is where I zero this thing, and I shot this group, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, threw that one over to the right, but from standing, it's a pretty good group, and it is holding 0. Now, before we go on, I feel like I should touch a little bit more on that subject of it holding 0. So, I don't know if you guys can see, but we got a little bit of red Loctite under there. Typically, I do not use red Loctite, especially on screws this small. But I did have some issues with my plate coming loose. All right, boys and girls, I'm going to do a little project here. So, you guys can hear that. So my plate is loose. This is the second time, so we're going to take care of this hopefully to where that doesn't happen again. All right, so we got this off. These screws were holding well. This one right here was just, I mean, it wasn't even hand tight. So we're going to clean these up, and then we are also going to clean this out with some Q-tips and some acetone or some brake cleaner. That way the thread locker will bite a little bit better. And as you can see, I've definitely been using thread locker. That's something I always do, but for some reason it's just not wanting to hold. All right, so I put a little brake cleaner on here, cleaned these screws, cleaned underneath the heads. I went ahead and cleaned the Optic screws just to be safe. And then we put that down in here, and then I went through and wiped them down with a dry end. That way I could get any little thing I possibly wiped off that was still in the threads, try and get that out before we reapply. I'm not messing around this time. I always clean screws and apply Loctite later. Typically I use the blue Vibratite, and naturally the first time it came loose was after my first USPSA match. So I cleaned screws off, got all the Loctite off there, and reapplied, tightened down to torque spec, all that good stuff. And yet again, in another couple hundred rounds, my Optic was loose again. So this second time, I figured I should take a deeper dive into this, figure out what's actually going on. And the best I could figure was that there was still quite a bit of oil in the slide where the plate screws are going into. I would say out of the 1,500 rounds, we're probably at 700 or 800 since I did that, and obviously it's holding really good now. So I would say if you're looking into one of these pistols, I would just don't do what I did and make extra sure all of the the threaded holes in the plate where the Optic screws to, make sure those are clean, and make sure the holes in the slide are clean. Like I say, I think mine just had an excessive amount of oil in there. It's no fault of Ergonomics or Fusion, whatever you want to say. That's a typical thing that a lot of companies do to keep these guns from rusting while they're in shipping or in storage at a store or what have you. But aside from that, this pistol, as I mentioned, has been running fantastic. I don't think it's gotten any smoother than it was before. Let's see here real quick. Yeah, we can still air rack it. For those of you that place a lot of importance on that sort of thing, you can still do that. Let's go over some of the wear and such that we have seen. I will say I have not cleaned this gun at all since I got it, because that's another thing I wanted to make sure of, is I didn't have to take it apart and detail clean it to keep it running reliably. First and foremost, I think that the wear that started showing up the first is here on the barrel hood, and just ahead of that we've got a little bit of wear, which I think is coming from the Safariland holster, which technically isn't for this gun, but it works. From there, obviously, we've got a good deal of carbon and such like that around in the comp, and that's because it's doing its job. And back from there, we got a little bit on the slide stop, slide release, whatever you want to call it. And then we've got some on the safety that I would use being right-handed. I'm going to touch on that here in another second. And on the other side, safety, we've got a little bit, not really any on the grip safety or anything. Obviously, we've got some gouges and stuff like that, dents and dings on the magwell from me dry firing and just flat out using this gun. As I mentioned on that safety, so for me, as you guys, if you've been following me for a while, and I've mentioned it several times, I've got big gorilla hands. So even though this is a relatively big grip this way, it's not the longest grip this way. So typically what I've been told in classes and such, for recoil management, you want as much of your support hand taking up the space where your dominant hand is to get the most grip, most purchase you can on the gun. So when I do that, I'll take this hand away. You guys can see that. Well, my manual safety is down underneath that part of my thumb, or down in my palm. Obviously, that is causing some wear, which I really couldn't care less about because it's really not that bad. But the problem I've been running into is during USPSA, like say I've got the gun on fire and I obviously move my trigger finger up here and I go to move to another position and go to present the gun. Well, that part of my hand pushes my safety up. So I've got a target and I'm like, oh shit. And it costs me some time. It's not a life or death thing, obviously, because we're shooting cardboard targets that don't shoot back, but it is costing me some time and it's causing some frustration. Again, it is a me problem, not a gun problem. I've had a buddy of mine that shoots a lot of 3-gun say, hey, why don't you ride the safety? And I know a lot of guys do that, and it's because obviously, again, whenever that safety's down, I would have to literally push my grip, almost smash my hand together like this for this thumb to ride that safety. So I am looking into possibly getting what they call a high ride safety and see if that helps me out. If not, this gun may not stick around because I don't want to have to change a lot about the gun or how I grip guns, handguns in general, just to be able to run this thing. I'm not that married to the idea of a 2011. I will simply just go back to exclusively shooting Glocks, which I would have no problems with. Suffice to say, this thing has been, I think, worth every penny so far, especially seeing as there are no MIM parts in it, so I don't really have to worry about here in the next, 2,000 to 3,000 rounds, worry about hammers breaking or anything like that. This thing should be good to go for quite some time, and for the price tag of, I want to say, MAP, again, is somewhere around 14 hundo. This thing, yeah, is definitely worth it. As to be expected, a gun like this, as heavy as it is with a comp, recoil impulse is amazing. The dot barely leaves the window if my grip is even bad. You might see in some of this match footage that sometimes when the targets are relatively close, I don't even aim. I just kind of point and I can just rip this trigger as fast as I can, and I can just really group my rounds really good. In fact, I've actually noticed with this gun, this thing allows me to shoot faster than I'm normally comfortable with. In fact, this most recent match that I went to, obviously shooting open division, the two guys that beat me had less alpha zone or A zone, you know, like chest and head box hits than I did, which if you're really competitive, that tells me I need to shoot faster. So I need to shoot this thing even faster than I already am to try and improve. And one thing I will say, I think the brake on the trigger still really good, but I'm going to get this next to the microphone, see if you guys can hear it. You guys can probably hear that reset. So I feel like the reset is a little bit more tactile and audible now. It's probably been that way for a while, but I don't, especially on a gun like this, I don't always ride the reset like I would on a Glock, because trigger like that, you can end up with a surprise if you try and ride that. But as usual, guys, if there's something about this gun that I didn't cover in this video, or you'd still like to see me do with this gun, let me know down in the comments and I'll try and get back to you. And if you stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. You might consider doing all the cool stuff, the liking, the sharing, the subscribing, because it really helps me out. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. And as always, remember guys, it doesn't matter how fast you miss.